Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Today we have with us Belen to start the great event about personal branding. And we all know how much it's important for us as a software engineers or people who want to get a job in IT industry, how much it's important for everyone after COVID-19 to polish our presence in digital, like photo prints, our presence in general, in those kind of platforms where we can express and expand our identity, our professional identity. Let me welcome Belen. Are you with us?
Hello, there we go. So now we should actually, I'm in the call, which is great. Hi, Hanan.
Hi, Belen. How are you?
I'm doing well, yeah. I was in a different room, so I didn't know. I could see you talking, but I couldn't join, so I'm happy to be here.
You are more than welcome, and we are very, very excited for today's session. And I do believe we will give our students a lot of valuable information. So the stage is yours. You can start your session or your presentation in general.
Before I start, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me because I see some comments that... So can anyone confirm that they can hear me? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Zakaria. Perfect. Okay. Then hopefully I can also share my screen and then we can begin. Yeah. I think you have to give me permission to share my screen.
Well, I'm not the host here. Dimitar, are you?
Now I can. Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Okay. As per usual, I'll ask if you can see my screen. It's the... You can? Perfect. Okay, so... Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here today. So the Social Hackers crew, I've heard a lot of great things about what the community does and what you're all here for. So what I want to talk to you today is about how to build your personal brand and what that means and how you can use it to bulletproof your future career and revenue. So a bit about me. Yeah, who am I? So I'm Belen Wagaw. I think there was a typo in my name in the screen, so it's Wagaw with a W on both ends. I'm born and raised in Ethiopia, so in the capital city of Addis Ababa. I studied in the US for my bachelor's degree, and then I moved to Germany to do my undergrad and spent quite a few years in Germany, and I'm now in Berlin. I started my full-time career in 2016, so it's not too long ago, but you know, I'm dating myself a little bit. And this is again the highlight reel, right? The great things that you can say about yourself. So I climbed the corporate ladder pretty quickly, got promoted many times, and in those last 6 years or so. And 2 months ago, I was a chief storyteller, which is kind of telling the story of a company, the branding piece for a software as a service company, a B2B company. And I actually left that job, and I am now the owner of a personal branding agency. And the funny thing is, when I signed up to do this webinar, to do this talk with you all, this had not happened. So when I was talking to Martha, I feel really strongly about personal branding, but I didn't start the agency at that time. And I think I was already thinking of doing it. So I guess it kind of makes sense that I'm here with you all today. So a few of the basics, because what is a personal brand? I won't bore you with the super technical, Oxford Dictionary kind of definition, but what many people see and how I see it is it's your reputation at scale, an extension of who you are offline. You might be a great developer or a great university student, but maybe people know that within your community, right? Like in Social Hackers or in Athens, but does that extend to other people globally know it? And that's what your personal brand actually does. It's basically what people think of you when you're not there, and it speaks on your behalf even if you're not in the room, right? So if you Google someone and they have a lot of content online, their brand is already speaking for themselves and they don't always actually have to talk about it. And so why do I myself care about my personal brand? for a really long time, I thought I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, be super successful in that way. But for me, and again, this is for me, I don't want to tell you that this story is for everyone, but I realize essentially that it is a bit of a rat race, right? There's always a next promotion, there's always a next salary, there's always that, and you're kind of always comparing yourself in a career. And I actually wanted to find another opportunity or another way to live my life that maybe would not have to be super necessary to be within a company or to feel like someone else was always holding their faith or my faith in their hands. And what building a personal brand does for you is just expands your surface area of luck. It just makes, it might not immediately make you more money or immediately grow your network and all of that, but the more you do it and the more consistent you are, it's just like a good reputation, right? You're more likely to have better luck in life. And that is, I'll talk about leverage a little bit more. So I wanted to expand my area of luck and also leverage, like how much, the more effort you put into it, the more you give back. And if you have no leverage in competing or in a workplace, right? If someone can get rid of you really quickly, you have no leverage. But the more your brand speaks for yourself, you do get leverage. So what did it do for me? This is a bit of the, again, flashy numbers and all of that. And this, I'll focus on LinkedIn today because that is what I focused on. And I think that's the best place to start for many, many people. Although, there's a lot of things you can do. There's Instagram, there's TikTok, but for a career perspective in terms of that, I think LinkedIn is a great place. So what it did for me, and this is in 1 year, right? So if you see the numbers below, that's kind of all of the great things. In 1 year, I got 1 million views on my content, a bunch of likes, a lot of comments, right? People that are really caring about what you're posting and are giving you ideas and are standing behind you. But it also led to a lot of job offers coming to me, people saying, hey, do you want to do this? Or can you consult me? Can you coach me? But also, and that kind of opens the door to have side hustles. So even when I was at my company, I was like, okay, maybe I can coach on the side. Or maybe eventually I can create a course, right? Like, just when you have an audience, it allows you to just do much more. And finally, what it also did is that it gave me the confidence to leave my job, in the sense that I was like, okay, I know that I know some things. I know that what I talk about, people care about. And there are ways to, for example, either monetize, or I know that if I leave this job, I can also get another job because I know what the market has said, quote unquote. And I'll check a bit of, you can earn from LinkedIn as someone who searched a lot for passive income. I didn't know that. So I'll check the chat in and out. And for this question, it's a bit of an interesting question. So you cannot earn from LinkedIn directly, right? LinkedIn is not giving me money. But what posting on LinkedIn and building a brand does, it offers the possibility to monetize yourself or your talents, in the sense of, if I'm posting a lot about leadership, there might be a question that eventually someone wants to have coaching, or you might create a $10 product, right? That is a top 10 things I learned about being a part of a social hackers kind of an online community, and that teaches me, developing skills or coding skills. This is what it does. So that's what I meant with that you can earn money through that. But it's not that LinkedIn is giving me a paycheck. However, I would be pretty surprised if that doesn't eventually happen, that just like TikTok and everything, people are creating, or platforms are actually finding ways to motivate their creators. And LinkedIn recently created a LinkedIn creator. They're testing out a lot of different things, starting with North America and eventually going to Europe. And I think it's going to head in that direction for whoever asked, but it's not directly in my pocket. So, it might be the earned. Yeah, you're welcome. So this earned media value, that might be also where the question is coming from. This means basically what you would have traditionally paid, and I wish I knew the exact terminology or the exact way this is calculated, what it means, but if I were to have paid someone to either create SEO for me, or like, that's kind of what it is. It's worth this much. Like in traditional methods, maybe someone would have paid for a journalist to cover something or press releases. That's what that kind of means. But do Google it on your end. I'm not doing this enough justice from my end. So I hope that helps. And a lot of you might be saying, like, why should you care about your personal brand? And there's a lot of ways to go about it. I just put a few reasons here, but I really think that there is no downside to creating a personal brand. And I would love to hear your questions later, what you kind of wonder about, or the issues that you see. But one of the most important assets of today is having online leverage, right? So what I mean it bulletproofs your career is, even if someone, let's say you apply for a job and you're saying that you're a great developer, would it not help that a recruiter looks at your LinkedIn profile and they see that you've actually talked about the things you've learned, you've shared, that what you're talking about? So that is what is online leverage in terms of things can back it up, like it's your online portfolio instead of having a super static resume. You can also start to build your tribe, people that believe in the thing that you're saying, kind of someone that is really behind what the things I believe in. And I have that a lot, right? I talk about intentionally living or remote working, or when I was a chief of staff, and I've met so many people that I never thought would have similar thoughts as me, or Ethiopians from around the world that are like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I never would have known unless I posted. More opportunities for jobs, for sure. So like they tell you, and I'm sure, because Hanan, I think that's, career and soft skills and hiring and all of that. If you reach out to a recruiter after applying for a job, if you have a bit more background or like more things to talk, that says this is who this person is, instead of just a name, it helps you. And less unstable for a job crisis. So right now, if you see on LinkedIn, there are a lot of people that are posting, my company just laid 2,000 people off, NX. The people that post that and have had an online following for a little bit, that have contributed, that have given back, that are not just wanting to take from the platform, are much more likely to have people helping them, right? I know that if I were to lose my job, or maybe the agency doesn't work out, if I say, you know what, it doesn't work out, and is anyone else hiring for a head of communications, I'm much more likely to get it than 2 years ago when only people at my company knew I was good at what I was doing. And opportunity to network. I've met people that I never thought I could have gone on a call with or would have given the time of day, because they were impressed with what I was saying, which was kind of crazy, right? So it just connects those dots way better than you would have without it. So there's a lot I could say about why you should care, but oh yeah, and there's a huge, scary, super impressive stat, right? So there's 1 billion people on LinkedIn. 1 billion, that's a lot of people. But less than 1% are posting content regularly. And by regularly, that is on a weekly basis. So it doesn't take that much effort to stand out, right? Especially if you're giving value-driven content. It's still very, very ripe for you all to post and to actually engage and give something of value. And it's only getting more known, right? Like there's a lot of people that are understanding that there's a lot to be gained from being on LinkedIn and just like building your brand. But yeah, the best time is for sure now. So how to get started today? I've mapped out a little bit in very simple terms. I would love to hear your questions on kind of what you would like to hear about, but how you can get started today. If you have not, just create a LinkedIn account, obviously. Updated your bio and everything, whatever it is, maybe you're still a student or you're in social hackers or whatever it is, and whatever you can, very basic, right? And then really what I mean today. And then send each other connections. You probably know people in this, in this format, people in the chat, people in your crew. Send Hanan and Martha a connection, and that's how you can kind of get started at least. What to do in 1 week? I would just say talk, kind of brainstorm a few of the maybe topics that might be of interest. Maybe you like coding or learning about coding, and you like traveling to other cities, that are 10 kilometers away, and something else. And for that, I mean like just brain dump it, right? Because a lot of people will say, I don't know what to talk about. And it can get super overwhelming. So maybe over a cup of coffee or something, just kind of write down everything you think might make sense. And I do want to challenge you all to create your first post. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's a muscle, and it's scary for a lot of people to actually get out there. But yeah, I would say create your first post. Maybe about social hackers. That was, an idea that maybe you can take. What to do in 3 months. So commit to posting at least 3 times a week. And the reason I say this is 1 time a week is just, it's all about habits, right? For anyone that has read maybe James Clear, Atomic Habits, like things need to, you kind of need to do anything consistently for them to be in your muscle memory. But more than that, you kind of also owe it to yourself to show up consistently, to know what you're like to talk about. It takes time to figure out, and nothing has to be perfect, and you can pivot and change. I've changed what I talk about so many times. Nothing has been very cookie cutter. And emulate people you admire. In that sense, it's maybe in the beginning you don't find your voice, you don't know how to write or the format, and it can get very overwhelming. But when you're going through your feed, and at the end of the presentation, I actually have some suggestions of people you can follow that might be interesting. Maybe just get inspired from them, right? Of how they're writing. If they're adding video, you could do that too. You could add photos, no photos. You could draw stuff, you could write, anything, just kind of test things out. And then network and engage. I wish I did this sooner. So when I first started, I was just focusing on just writing and then replying to people commenting on my posts and just kind of disappearing into the limelight. But ideally, you're actually talking to people and you're giving value in your comments, right? And even if it might be someone else that's posting about being in their early 20s or 21. There are a lot of people, right? And like, what do you wish you would have known when you moved somewhere? What do you wish, whatever, right? There's always something you can give. And this is actually, so I explain what this is. I wish I didn't put the screenshot, but what you can do after 3 months, ramping up to posting 5 times a week would be great. That's what I'm currently on. And I'm actually gonna try to do this more often, just because it gets easier the more you do it, and you can actually reuse a lot of that content. And the reason why I have it, at 3 months and after is you can kind of notice trends. Okay, I like talking about this, and you can also rejiggle, right? Like reformat some stuff and see what's resonating, and just like building that muscle a little bit more. But then if you remember, like initially you might have a bunch of topics that you're talking about, and I'm not someone that says you should only talk about one niche. I'm not this person as well. I'm multi-passionate, but maybe just think about 2 to 3 things you want to talk about. Maybe you're really into sustainability or, social impact, or also something else, right? You can talk about all those things, and just kind of also finding systems to write. Maybe you want to write your 5 posts on one Saturday morning, and there's a lot of frameworks out there. I also will mention some people you can follow to get those systems. Okay, how to write, bullets or not, can kind of help you. And this was actually I wish I had the screenshot of someone that was posting on LinkedIn that was saying, hey, I also want to find out what are some of the topics that I want to talk about. And I don't want to do one niche, so I'll be a voice for young people who are afraid to start on LinkedIn. I'll talk about my journey to being a full-time presenter on a podcast, and maybe my obsession with donuts, which is so funny, right? Like, 4 years ago, LinkedIn was super serious, very corporate. You talk about everyone is in a suit. It's not like that anymore. People are showing their true selves, right? People are showing what they believe in, like whether it's pride or whether it's anything, right? That they don't have to be this super professional person. And the way LinkedIn is evolving, it's much more of a social platform now, and that is intentional from LinkedIn, from the headquarters, and that it's no longer just a career platform, because we are more than just our jobs, right? We are all people that are, passionate about a lot of different things. And these are, so at this point, a lot of you might be listening to me, you're like, Belen, sounds like a great idea, but all of these things, and these are the buts. I don't have anything to say, which, funnily enough, this is what I hear from even the most senior executives that write to me that I either worked with in my last company or before that. They think they don't have anything to say. And to those people, some I would say you can also curate content, aka you don't always have to create your original thoughts per se, but let's say you really like, I don't know, productivity, right? But like managing your time really well. And you're like, I don't know what I want to say about that though. Okay, you can go and see the different productivity coaches or experts on LinkedIn or anything, and you can say, oh, I took the time to research these people, and you can mention them and say, and this is the top 4 things they have to say. This is where they differ. This is where they're similar. And that's curating content. It's still your own words, but it's not, you're not acting like you're an expert. And you don't always have to be an expert online. You can also be a gatherer, a researcher. You can always talk about your aspirations. What are your goals, right? So I am, for example, going to move to Portugal soon. Like, I don't have another, I might not have a lot to say on the country and the history and, density and all of that, but I can talk about, I'm planning to move to Portugal and I'm super excited and this is why it matters. And there will be people that relate to it, which is really cool. And you can also talk about people you admire. Maybe it's like Oprah or Ricky Martin, I don't know, but you can talk about anything. I don't have enough experience. That's also something a lot. And maybe some of you on here might also think, hey, I don't have 10 years of career. I also don't, or I haven't done a lot that warrants me posting on LinkedIn. And I actually screenshotted this from someone I saw recently, which is, there's always someone that's more experienced, but funnily enough, there's always people that are behind your journey. Who was Hanan maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago? And, you can always talk to that person. And you don't need to pretend to know something you don't. And the really good thing is, like, social platforms actually like when you open up and say, hey, I'm new on LinkedIn. I have no idea what I'm saying, but here it goes. Like, you don't need to pretend like you know everything, because it also will feel odd to you. You won't want to feel like you want to do that. So don't. You can actually be pretty honest. And maybe another blocker is I'm not a good writer. I don't like to write. And for that, I would say first, no one is born a great writer, right? It's like, maybe Charles Dickinson or whoever woke up and they were great, but I don't believe in that. And there's someone I really admire on LinkedIn. His name is Justin Welsh. I have him at the end. He is now a really good writer if you see his stuff on LinkedIn. But I went back to his stuff in early 2020, late 2019, was terrible, truly terrible. In the sense of he doesn't sound like himself, you can tell he's pretending to be someone else, and he mentioned that. And the only reason I looked up was like, he said, oh no, I wasn't a good writer. And then I had to believe it. I was like, yeah, but even back then, if I did not know him now, I would not have said that, right? It's not that he was that terrible back then, I would not have known, but the difference is so shocking. And it's even for me, like when I see stuff I wrote 2 years ago, I'm like, is that the same Blaine? Right? So that, first of all, that's that. And then you can also learn from others. There's a bunch of books, there's, free frameworks, there are people on LinkedIn talking about how to write better. And the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is just to actually be consistent. So even if it is, you say, first, I want to try posting 1 time a week. Okay, just do it. Then 3, then whatever, right? But just showing up means much more than being perfect. And yeah, in 2023, so next year, what I say is you will wish you had started today. Because I look back and I'm like, hey, I wish I would have done this way sooner in 2019 when I was thinking of creating more content. I wish I started my YouTube channel when I was in college. Never did, right? So there will never be a better time, but the best time will always be either yesterday or today, like never tomorrow. So that's kind of what I would say. And I will wrap up with some people to follow, some recommendations. And I'm sure that either the slide deck will be sent to everyone, I'm not sure, or you'll get an email. But if not, feel free to screenshot. So Justin Welsh is the person that I mentioned. I learned a ton from him. I took his course, I was in his community, and that's someone I really recommend to just follow because he has great tips on building your audience and also earning an income through the internet. Mariana Kobayashi is also amazing. She has a lot of early professional career tips of how she pivoted from doing a bunch of interesting things. She is Portuguese, and yeah, doing a bunch of really cool things. Matt Barker, he has a lot of copywriting tips. Austin Belsack, I think he's probably the biggest person on LinkedIn, but his content is actually really good. He talks about interview and resume tips, super in depth. He also has a really great website, so maybe that's something that I all can look at actually outside of LinkedIn, just for some of first salary stuff or anything you actually say. There has a lot of free PDFs and resources that you can actually look into, which is super helpful. Yeah, and that is it for my end. If you have any questions. So David, hi. So first of all, it's nice to see you on here. Is it more impactful to write posts or respond to posts in the comments? So funnily enough, I would say I would have a cheeky answer, which is it's better to do both. If you are hesitant to write your own post and you just want to kind of dive into the waters, right? If you're hesitant, then start with engaging on other people's posts in the comments. That also is actually showing who you are. It's you're still saying a lot to say, but it's not as scary maybe. But the good thing I would say about writing your own post, if you were to comment first, is actually a lot of your comments can be turned into posts. And that's what I do sometimes, because you see someone, let's say Ahmed, for example, right, post something, and you're like, that's super interesting. And then you reply on that comment and you realize this is a really good comment. Hey, I'm actually going to take it and put it into my own original content because I got inspired. So it's like the train that never stops. And the more you start creating content, you realize that everything is actually related, or you kind of always find ways to create more, which is really cool, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, to that question, I would say it's better to do both. But if you're hesitant, start with responding to posts and then actually make those as posts, and eventually you write your own original content as well. I hope that was helpful. And yeah, please let me know if you have any more questions. Hanan, I don't know if you also want to chime in.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really, really interesting what you mentioned. And I'm very happy because I think you made the things in one place and you make it smart and deep at the same time. Like short, smart, but very deep, mean a lot. So thank you very much, Belen. I would like to ask about the things that came to our alumni or graduates' mind that I don't have experience. And the most interesting part, they stuck with it, which is the about me part.
Yeah.
So especially for junior people. So I would love to hear your point of view there. This is one of my questions.
That's actually a great question, because it's, and I think before I get into details of what you can write, I think it's almost putting less of a pressure on having the perfect about me section, the perfect header, the perfect banner, because it changes. I've changed mine so many times, right? So that's one thing, like less pressure. Like we think that people will see, Hanan said yesterday she was this title, now she's this. Everyone is seeing your profile every day. So that doesn't happen. And even if you are, an alumni or someone in social hackers or anything, and you're like, okay, what do I write about me? You don't have to make it super professional or super serious like LinkedIn used to be. So what I used to have before is actually, and it changes as much as my life changes, right? So right now I have, okay, who can I help? What do I do? And I even have some quotes I believe in, but I used to have, hey, I was kind of my story. I was born in Addis, then I moved here. Right now I'm doing this job with some kind of the highlights you would have from your resume, right? Like, and if you don't, it could also be I'm doing my bachelor's here, or I'm taking the certificate, and because I'm aspiring to be a developer eventually, I'm in Athens, or I'm whatever. And these are some things I like. So I used to have a whole section where it was things I like or things I believe in. So I like flat whites, I like dogs, I like tacos, I like the saxophone. This is what I believe in. I believe in emotional intelligence beats IQ, right? EQ beats IQ. I believe that building a personal brand is whatever. Like some of also my beliefs and some, I think, expressions. So you can play around with it. And I think the most important is that when you look at the, I like the comment. I like, sorry, I had to laugh, but this is a good friend of mine. So that's why this is funny. But so, I think as long as you're about me is something you look at and you feel like this is something that feels right. And you're not trying to be someone that has a super serious thing and it doesn't reflect you, right? So play around with it and you can always change it. We're not married to it. That's the biggest thing I would say. But yeah, if you even want some recommendations on who has different ones, I can send that to you and I'm sure you can pass it on to people here.
Okay, sure. Would be very helpful. Thank you very much. The second thing I want to ask about it, which is how much we can add the, let's say, the character traits. Like we have many character traits, and instead of saying, for example, I'm problem solver, my shoulder is as a sponge, or I'm enjoying like digging deep in code more than like eating chocolate. So like this smartness of to have like the sense of the humor,
yes,
impact much more than like being highly proficient React developer.
Yes, 100%. Oh my goodness. So
Well,
you can tell who either people that have either not updated their LinkedIn because they've been on it for really long. And I'm not saying that's wrong, right? Like you can be, but it's very rare that someone is that serious. When you meet them, you're like, they write highly seasoned executive and whatever, and then you get on a call with them and they're so personable, right? And they like to work out and I'm not saying you have to always share everything, but showing a bit of your personality helps because at the end we're all just people. Like
exactly.
Even if you're a new graduate or after, at the end people relate to people. So showing a bit of the sense of humor and the chocolate thing. I like that because I've also been I've had to hire people and I've worked with other recruiters and people, everyone will look. Yes, you send their resume, but they'll Google you. And the first thing they'll see if you don't have your personal website is always LinkedIn. It has a very strong SEO, right? That's what goes in. You see, and you look it up. And one, it's like, does this person match? Okay. But if you have something extra, then more than you said in the resume, it helps. Because if you're this exact copy, then it's like, okay, you didn't really utilize this amazing landing page you could use.
Yeah, like to show a part of your personality, this is something really important. Because you are a human at the end, and it's good to think about your interests in general, so you can follow, and then in the timeline you will have much more suggestions. Joining the conversation itself in the beginning, I would say, like regarding the post itself, because everyone feeling scared to create a post, and I was one of them, for example, before 5 years ago. But the point is, I told them always to join a conversation in something you're interested about, for example, JavaScript. Yeah. And then you will see much more connections from here and there. Your mind, it will start to construct and build to be able at some point to share a post and put your comments.
Yeah. That's a great point, and that's a bit similar to what David was asking, right? It's a good way to get into the water, and I wish I had done that too, because it's better than just waiting for the perfect day where you feel like you know everything, you've done your research. That's a good way it's less scary, because someone has posted and then you're just, especially if you're engaging early, that's a nice tip that I would say. If you reply on something, even on mine, right? If you comment on a post that I wrote 3 days ago, it's less likely that I reply, not because I don't care, but just it gets a bit tough to manage, right? But if it's in the first day or in the first few hours, then you reply, and that's cool. And I remember, some people come back and then I go and comment on them because I'm like, they are leaving such thoughtful comments, and I'm interested in what they say. And it's a bit similar to people like to help other people too. And you'll see this in your career. Most people are nice. And I say most because of course there are some But most people want to help, especially if you're not just taking, and that's what commenting does, because you're giving something for
Fire
someone.
then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I see that Kamilaos also has a question, which is a great question.
Samantha, yeah, how to sell your brand in interviews?
Oh, I think I missed that one.
In the Q&A section.
Oh, I didn't even know that there was that. Okay, well, should I? Okay, so I'll first go to that one. So Samantha asked how to sell your brand in interviews, which is not a tricky question, but ideally, you don't have to. So that's what I mean of like what your personal brand does for you. A lot of times now when people, of course, you can't assume that recruiter or that interviewer has checked out everything you said, but sometimes, a lot of times they do, right? They'll look at your LinkedIn or they see that you have done something. And if not, you can also kind of mention, okay, I like to create content. If someone is like, what do you do on your free time? That's a cool thing to say. You know what? I like to give back by sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn or on Twitter or whatever. Again, everything I said, I know I focus on LinkedIn because I think it's a really great platform, but it could also be on your TikTok if you're like talking about how to win in JavaScript or how to do that. It's a nice way to say that you're giving back and you're passionate about something, a topic, and you're actually putting it out in the world. But for that question, how to sell your brand, what you will see if you do this long enough is that your brand will speak on your behalf, right? People might contact you because they saw the post, because they saw consistently. And that's what it does. It's not an overnight success. I'm not saying that if you do this for 2 weeks, your life will change, but I've done this just for a year consistently, more or less, and a lot has happened. So for that question, I would say ideally your brand sells itself in interviews, but if not, you can say, hey, I like to create content. And then there was a question from...
I'm a super passionate developer, that's it.
Sorry?
I'm a super passionate developer and that's it. They might like you at the end. This is a trick to like you.
Yeah, and imagine like if you're saying you're a super passionate developer, but on top of that, you've actually been helping people that just started coding. What speaks more, right? Because you can say anything. I can say that I love to rescue animals, right? Okay, you can believe me, or if I've talked about it and I've showed my journey, that's what's more believable, right? So that's the difference of and mostly like it starts becoming fun, like because you see that other people are relating and like it kind of becomes cool. I'm not saying that it's only this to get something out of your brand. It does that. It does bulletproof your career, but it's also kind of fun because it's kind of creative.
Yeah. We have another question. What would you say regarding brand building by posting to such platforms to a person who might have social anxiety, is shy, or an introvert? Or basically to someone who just plain doesn't feels comfortable using such platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. And especially, I mean, I would also love to ask if what I think the beauty of writing text posts can be, it's less scary or maybe less inducing for an introvert even. But to be fair, even I have times where I feel really scared about a post that I have had, right? Like I get heart palpitations. So I don't want to lessen that and saying it just because a text post won't affect you, right? But I think there are a few people that post on LinkedIn that post specifically for introverts. There's one person that I'll post in the chat. Actually, she's amazing and I know her actually pretty well, and she talks exclusively for introverts. Like she makes content talking about whether you want to, how to communicate better, all of that. She has really great tips. And I think starting off really slowly in terms of, I'll first start on, commenting on other posts or lessening the expectations. And this I would say that's kind of tying into the next question, which is how do you overcome the fear of a failed post? I almost want to say initially, if you're posting for the beginning, no expectations. Like it's tough to do. Like as humans, like our psychology says, I hope this goes viral. I don't know, maybe it does, but maybe there can be crickets, no one listens, right? But for that to avoid, maybe you have people within your group that say, hey, you can create, a way to kind of support each other. That's very nice, because you're like, okay, you're in this together, you could have a challenge. But it's to lessen the expectation as much as possible, so that it reduces that feeling of anxiousness, or that feeling of, oh, I did something and no one cares. But all the best writers now, or whatever, like if you see their content way back, basically no one liked it. And there is someone else who actually made an article about that, saying he went back to see like the most popular people on LinkedIn, and was like, how many times did they post before they got their first 10 likes or something? And some people posted, I don't know how many times, right? So just to show, okay, even the greatest people, like they didn't have raving fans. So maybe that, knowing that can help. Like it's not you, right? It's just how it is, and it's tough. So Dika, I hope that also answered in the same depth, that focusing on the quote that is consistency, is better than perfection. Like, and also viral posts, I've had a few of them, like they feel really nice, they are great for your ego, but that's not what really matters. What matters is like actually showing up and people relating you to something, and then that long-term relationship with people, that's actually what helps. But of course, when you get 1,000 something, you're like, oh my gosh, you think your life will change, but it doesn't, it really doesn't. So lessening kind of the expectations, I think, really helps. Cool. Yeah. That helped. I'll find the person's name with actually that article, because that might help. But
there is another question: how you overcome the fear of a failed post?
Yeah, so that's the one I just kind of covered, right? So it's just lessening expectations. Not thinking that because your last post performed X way that this one should be. And I just got someone actually writing me a few days ago, and I really felt for her, because I guess I was also similar, right? Because if you compare stuff in a few days increment, it doesn't really make sense. If you look at yesterday, I did, Monday I did this, Tuesday I did this, Wednesday I did this, and like it's too compact. You need to like have a longer view. Like I'm sure someone that's smarter technically has like a way to explain this. I'm not that great, but
it's accumulative process.
Yeah, and then it makes
time to see the result.
Exactly. It really takes time to see the result. And her question was, I posted on Monday and I had this many likes, and then yesterday no one really liked it. And her question really made me sad. It was like, is it people are seeing it and not caring, or people just don't like me? It's not that. Most likely it's just people didn't see it or whatever, right? But it just takes longer. Like give it a time to kick in.
Another question, I think this is interesting. How do you determine the correct SEOs or hashtags to use?
So for SEOs, I have no clue, in the sense of like I guess there is a way to really use SEO to drive people to see your LinkedIn post, but I don't think that's the question per se. I mean, some people like Austin Belsack, who I mentioned at the end of the presentation, he has a really robust website, right? He's been doing this for years, and he has a lot of free resources that's saying if you need resume tips or if you need interview tips, and he promotes that on many articles on the internet, like CNN or whoever he'll be, right? And then Austin Belsack, and then SEO like drives him to LinkedIn. But I don't think that's the question. But in terms of how to determine the hashtags to use, I have kind of stopped using hashtag, not because they don't matter, but I used to. I just kind of stopped using it. But if you actually type in top 50 hashtags on LinkedIn, there are many reputable LinkedIn articles that tell you this is it. So like career development is really big. So I used to use that for a long time, or like leadership or however, right? So it could help to use a few of them to just play it around. But that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah. to
I
get
hope that
more.
helps.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think like it just like to have such kind of general like terms regard what you are talking about, regard what you are passionate about, regard what your identity, what's the signal you want to spread to present you at some point. So if it's like web development, coding, React, JavaScript, so you will go on that side. For me, I would go to leadership, to career coach, to those like kind of hashtags.
Yeah.
There is another question: to get more exposure as LinkedIn followers, an algorithm that we need to understand to get the exposure we need.
Yeah, so it's interesting because all social platforms have an algorithm, for sure. All algorithms change. So I would say to focus less on chasing algorithms and more on having solid content. But I don't want to say that, saying that that doesn't matter. So there are a few things that I think will stand the test of time. For example, commenting on other people's posts as soon as they post, right? Because that's just how it works. Like, you will be shown first, more like Hanan, I post, Hanan comments on my post, then of course automatically you'll be shown kind of first. Hanan has a really thoughtful comment, she gets 1 like, 2 like, 3, because of everyone that's coming in, and that is technically an algorithm boost, but it's more organic. It's true because you got there early. Or if you reply to your own comments very quickly in the beginning, right? So what I do is usually I stay on for 30 minutes after I post every day, and then I reply to people, because it's nice, something nice to do. If someone posts as soon as I post, I want to thank them, but it also kind of boosts that. But other very like niche algorithm things, I don't pay attention that much, just because you might drive yourself a little insane trying to follow a new trend all the time. And frankly, like my, Carilaos had a question earlier, like what I tend to do is I'm an extrovert introvert, but also I get overwhelmed very quickly. So if I'm trying to follow algorithm trend all the time, it's not gonna be nice because I overcomplicate the content. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say for that.
Yeah, I just like to keep posting, showing yourself, looking for your identity, what you want to get out of LinkedIn at the end. Be yourself, be natural. And I think this is much more important, because at the end, like any kind of algorithms, it's built based on humans build that algorithm.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's exactly, humans build that algorithm. And I think, like, for example, for LinkedIn, for a long time, video used to perform really well, I think, and now it's not. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do video, you should not do video because it's not performing well. If you prefer to be on video and you don't like to write at all, and you'll never write if you don't do video, do the video. Like, people, the right people will still watch it, and at least you're putting out content, so that's okay. Or you would rather put more pictures, shorter text, because you don't want to write that much, that's also okay. I think it's more important that you do it than trying to be something you're not, and then you're not consistent, and then we're back to square one. So
yeah, cool. So in the chat, I don't see things. Did we answer how to sell your brand in interviews? Yes, I think we passed.
Yes. Ideally, it sells itself, but if not, talk about that you create content.
Yeah, exactly. For now, I think I have something in my mind I want to ask, but it's
sure. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything.
One of my concerns was about the about me part, and about like the diversity of posting, but do we need to have let's say red lines on commenting on like critical cases, word cases, because this might be a reason to eliminate me if I want to apply for Europe, and but I have like I spread this kind of like signals on LinkedIn about a case that it's at some point, you know, the word, it's like big. And since I'm talking from the Middle East, I would like to hear from you how you perceive those things, or how it's functioning in general.
Yeah, that's a really good question. At the end of the day, it's an online platform, right? So the basic human decency stuff stays, right? Like, don't be rude, don't insult anyone online. There's a difference between being polarizing and being controversial just to be controversial, like saying these people suck or these whatever. Like, that's not a nice thing to do, right?
Right.
And I would say that. And as long as your content is not, I wouldn't even say you can't talk about politics, but I would never post something that you're like too worried, hey, I'm not proud of this. This might be, you know, because we all have instincts. Like, if you say that, there's some that's more like your comfort zone, you know? Like, I didn't want to post pictures that much before because I thought people would judge me for some reason. Like, I was like, oh, people will think that I'm trying to, this is Instagram or this is Facebook. Part of me said that. But the other part of me, I was like, okay, this is just actually my own judgment of what I'm just scared. So there's that. But if there's the side which is, I'm worried that my words will come back to bite me, or if I want to apply to this company and I said Apple is a terrible employer, maybe not, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not that you should be so censored.
And like this has happened because one of our alumni, I think he had like a feedback and rate on one of the big companies' product, and one day he landed in the final stage to be with them, and like the offer was amazing, everything was amazing. At the end, they just like reply back to him and said, "We apologize," and they didn't mention the reason. Then we do the internal follow-up to get this feedback, and it was a shock for me. Like, because they saw his like bad feedback on their own product, so they refused. Yeah.
But you know what's interesting? I would say, obviously, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, it's case by case. Maybe that's really unfortunate because he really wanted to go with that company. But there are also some red flags that people should follow. If it was just saying, if let's say he's a developer and he's saying this thing has always been having so many bugs and it's, you know, they could improve it in this way. It depends on how he said it. If it's just insulting the company, okay. But if it's a thoughtful thing and if they still think it's not right, then it's a company that doesn't have a trust feedback and probably might not be happy there, right? So there's a difference. There was a time I remember that someone did not get the job, actually an HR person at SAP when I was there, but what she was commenting was actually racist comments, right? And very recently. So it wasn't like people were not don't dig, right? For like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And that's a big issue. So if you're this kind of person, I think, I mean, maybe don't be racist would be a good one first, but if you're, you know, maybe like don't post that. So, yeah, people don't like criticism. Yeah, I think some people, yeah, like I think especially if a company is not open to receive any criticism, that's probably not a good place, right? So,
yeah, it's like we need to control that. Be aware of red flags.
be aware of red flags. That's my motto for 2022, actually. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Belen. It was really interesting, very great event. We enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Me too. This was fun.
I really like how the time it's passed. We have just like 1 minute. So I would give it for you if you want to finish this session with anything like to inspire the alumni. I don't know, something from you.
No pressure. I'm kidding. So, I really appreciate all the questions. That's always nice to have engagement and people are actually asking questions. And thank you for everything for that. I would say if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can. That's a little plug, Belen Wagaw. But one message or like thing I would say is just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. that has been actually my biggest takeaway of the last few years, like throughout my career or through everything, because your growth really starts at the end of your comfort zone, right? Don't do anything that's dangerous, but just be okay with being uncomfortable is what I would say. And yeah, thank you so much, Hanan. Also to Marta, even though she's not on the call, I think, or maybe in the back. And yeah, everyone is social hackers. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and wish you a good, I don't know, you have like now evening, night time. Enjoy your evening time. Thank you very much again. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.